So for my purposes, will you just start by saying and spelling your first and last name and your title?
Sure. Kelly Mahoney, KELLY, Executive Director of External Relations and Communications.
Awesome. Long title.
Oh, one of the longest. I think Naomi Thompson has me beat, but
Yeah.
I'm a close second.
Can you talk about what exactly the process was that happened that made the tuition go up? I know the governor had some meetings and...
Sure. So it's a multi-phase process to have the university's budget reviewed and approved. It starts with submitting our budget proposal to the Council on Post-Secondary Education, who serves as our governing board. All higher education institutions do have governing boards, so for us in Rhode Island, public higher ed reports to the council. That submission happens in early September, usually. They go through a full public vetting process of that budget proposal. There are subcommittee hearings and then full council committee hearings to consider that. As part of that process this year, there were amendments requested by the council to decrease the amount of state funding that was being requested by the university. So we were able to amend our budget and put in a revised budget. The council approved that budget in November, and then the council recommends that budget to the governor. The governor then takes into consideration all of the budget submissions she receives from every state agency and higher education institution, and she submitted her budget in late January. That budget then gets fully reviewed and vetted through the General Assembly process, which we are participating in right now. URI has their budget hearings actually next week, April 3rd and April 5th, in front of both the Senate and House Finance committees. And then from there, the final budget gets approved sometime in June. So it's a lengthy, multi-step process.
Good for you for being able to fail that.
Yeah.
I would get,
Yeah, it's a very rigorous budget review process, as it should be, it should be. It's not just public dollars, but it's student and family dollars as well that are being considered. So it's a significant vetting process.
Well, have you guys received any, outcry or annoyance from parents or students?
I'm not aware that we've received really an outcry. Anytime that tuition increases are being considered, we certainly hear from many of our students and families who are rightly concerned with the affordability of a college education. In Rhode Island, we've been fortunate for the past 3 out of 5 years we've been able to freeze tuition for students and families, and we know that that actually contributes a lot to our affordability. And even with this modest increase, URI will still be the most affordable research institution in New England. So we are also mindful of keeping our competitive advantage. So we're able to attract both in-state and out-of-state students. And that's something that's very important to us.
What is the money, would you say, what is it going to be used for to help keep us, a competitive university?
Certainly. So as students, you're probably very well aware we need to continue to upgrade our technology across campus in a number of areas, particularly when it comes to classroom teaching technology. We want to have our classrooms really become more state-of-the-art. And we have quite a few of them on campus, but we have a large campus, and there's a lot of work still to be done in that area. So we want to make investments in classroom instruction. We also want to provide more infrastructure to do online instruction and ensure that the technology that we have available to teach courses online is very easy to use and is accessible no matter where a student or a faculty member may be located. In addition, anytime we raise tuition, we always look to increase financial aid. And so we ensure that there are resources set aside to make sure that, particularly in this case, because we're talking specifically about an in-state increase, that some of Rhode Island's neediest students see an increase in their financial aid.
Awesome. And so it will go to projects also like how they're building a new welcome center?
So the Welcome Center is pretty much paid for.
Okay.
Pretty exciting project out there. And that will help us continue our enrollment trends. Anytime, the first time you come to campus, it's important what that first experience is in order to attract students that aren't familiar with our campus and who we are and what we take pride in. So walking in that front door and how we showcase ourselves is critically important. So that's a good example of a project that we invested in. There are many projects like that. Because we're a historic campus, it tends to be expensive to maintain a lot of our historic buildings, and we're committed to doing that. But I think overall, really a lot of the investment that tuition has is in classrooms. Because let's face it, that's where you spend most of your time. So we're always looking to improve your educational experience while you're here. And that tends to be the library, Memorial Union, and then your general classrooms.
Did you say hiring more professors?
I didn't, but yes, that's something in the classroom. So as you may be aware, URI has had a faculty hiring initiative now. I believe we're going into year 3 or 4 of that. And the goal is to hire at least 50, if not more, full-time faculty. And that's to both meet the demands of an increased student body, which is something that we have been very intentional about doing, but also to attract new and different types of talent. We've also been able to really diversify our faculty as part of this hiring initiative, and we're pretty proud of the results there. Again, there's always room for improvement. There's more work to be done, but yes, faculty hiring is a big initiative.
Have you seen an increase in students, like enrollment next year?
So our enrollment numbers won't be available until October. So we're still actually actively recruiting the incoming freshman class. But I think it's safe to say that the trends we're seeing, at least on applications, the number of applications we see, are still at record highs. So the interest is definitely there.
Do you have?
Yeah, so I think you discussed this in the beginning with the first question about just explaining the process of the tuition increase. You discussed how there's a decrease of state funding. Could you explain more about why there's a decrease in state funding?
Sure. So I want to put it in the larger context. The state is actually increasing its investment in URI and has been for a number of years now. What happened during the recession, there were a number of years, and I can provide the data to you, where the university faced significant cuts in state funding. And I can say that we still have not recovered from those years of cuts. So we're currently still not funded at 2007 levels, to put it in perspective. However, the state has been increasing its investment in URI for a number of years now, both in the current administration as well as the previous. Every year they have been able to increase the state funding. I think the challenge the state faces, as you're probably aware, is it's had very constrained budget years. And so their ability to fully fund our requests has been constrained based on the amount of revenues that the state is bringing in. So the good news for Rhode Island is that we've been able to reverse the trend, and so now we are investing in higher education. It's just a matter of catching up is the challenge. And what was interesting through all of this, there was a report issued yesterday by SHEO, which is the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, that says there are 44 states that have not yet caught up to those pre-recession levels. So this is not a unique Rhode Island problem. This is really a national trend. I think what is probably different in Rhode Island is that they are trying to reverse that trend. Some states continue to cut higher ed, and it's unfortunate. Thankfully, in Rhode Island so far, they are reinvesting. It's just not at the levels that can keep up with particularly inflation alone.
So ultimately, this tuition increase is more just playing catch-up rather than adjusting to higher costs. of higher education here?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, we ultimately do need to catch up at some point, but the tuition increase also helps us take on new strategic initiatives, which in order to remain cutting edge, in order to stay competitive, in order to provide the level of education that our students are really demanding, it's important for us to be investing in those strategic initiatives, and we're committed to doing that.
I mean, I got all my questions. Is there anything that you want to add that we maybe didn't ask you? Or are you still have questions, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Gonna take most of them.
I think it would be helpful, because I really wanted, Kelly did a good job, describing the process.
Yeah.
But I wonder, Kelly, if we ought to just include in that process what we requested, what the council approved, and what the final governor's.
Do you want to know that, the sort of,
Yeah.
Because I-
because I've already killed you with the process. Do you want to
Yeah.
know the actual
I'm just
numbers in
thinking
the
that might be a
process?
question
So
you
you
have.
sent us the numbers, like it's 264 and then like $100.
Yeah, so you know the
Yeah.
actual dollar amounts, but
Yeah.
it's more of the state funding trend
Right.
in that process.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Okay.
That would show it is less than what we asked for. So, okay, yeah, I can do that
yeah,
if you think it would be
You
helpful.
started with that process, what we were looking for. was
Yeah, you want the numbers in there.
Well, yeah, because I think that'll give you a sense of, it'll put some hard facts to the process. So in October,
Sure.
September,
So when we submitted our budget to the Council on Post-Secondary Education, our original request was for $8.3 million in additional state revenue. That's on top of, the 70 million plus that they already give us. So we were looking for a modest increase in our state funding. The council recommendation that went to the governor included $4.4 million of increase for URI. So right there was a difference between what we had asked for and what the recommendation was. That tends to happen naturally in the vetting process. And then when the governor's budget was submitted, it's submitted at a time when the state revenues were projected to be much lower than expected. And so she had to make further changes, and so she proposed to increase our state funding by $1.1 million. So
now you can see
Yeah.
how.
the progression.
Yeah,
Okay.
and as Kelly indicated, and now it goes to the General Assembly, the state legislature, and they could cut more or they could add back in.
Correct.
Kelly can say that.
Correct. Yeah. So now the governor's budget is before the General Assembly. Like I said, we'll be testifying next week, and we are always advocating for more state investment in public higher education. That will never change. And again, because we're still at those lower levels, we'll continue to advocate to restore the funding at levels that we once enjoyed.
And I think I just have one more question.
Sure.
So some of the governor's opponents and critics have discussed this tuition increase as just a way of funding her free college CCRI program.
It's unfortunate that criticism is out there, because I think it's trying to pit one type of institution against another. And comparing a community college to a flagship research university or to a comprehensive college like Rhode Island College doesn't make sense in higher education finance. They're very unique individual institutions, and we have very defined missions that are extremely different. We serve different populations, we offer different programs, and so the level of state investment in each of those individual schools is absolutely necessary, critically important, and is differentiated. So suggesting that somehow URI students are paying for free education at the community college, it isn't relevant to what we're talking about, and that's not the intention at all. So when we propose a tuition increase or any increase in state spending, it is always directly related to investments at the University of Rhode Island specifically, and it's to achieve our mission.
Do you mind if I get like a two-shot of you and I?
Yeah, that's
talk?
fine. Yeah.
So, do you mind moving for like 2 seconds? I'm sorry. I gotta be creative here.
Why you don't?